think I'm good to go. What are we talking about?
We are talking about findthebestcarprice.com.
You know, that's one of the main goals in life, is to find the best car price. And, well, the best place to find the best car price is at findthebestcarprice.com, because, well, Jeff and his team, they scour all the manufacturers to find out what all the incentives are, so that you know what to expect when you go into a dealership. So if you want to find the best car price, go to findthebestcarprice.com/insider. There you go, Jeff. The best one I have ever done.
Yeah, I gotta hope, and I'm being dead honest here, that you can sell, because we're working on our app and like what we're gonna be selling in the future and whatnot.
Yeah.
You gotta sell ours that hard, man. That was I'd sign up right now.
Are you paying me?
No, still not paying.
Well,
okay.
There you go. Yes, of course. Find your auto advocate.
All right, so let's talk about the used car market, Dad. We are due for an update here. We have data that came from our dear friends at the New York Times, who evidently
go
have been
figure.
watching.
Yes, they must be watching our channel. They didn't give us any attribution at all, but they should have, because, well, what they said is now's not a good time to be buying used cars because the prices are sky high because, well, there's a shortage. Go figure.
Yeah, however, I don't know if you had a chance to review it, but Black Book put out their most recent update. It actually just came out September 9th, so this video is, I think, dropping on like the 11th or the 12th. And the first bullet point, this is the first bullet, I'm going to read it verbatim. Wholesale prices continued to lose steam last week. Overall price changes were stable, but some segments began to reflect larger declines that started the week prior. So we have a video from a couple weeks ago where we talk about how wholesale used car prices have reached the pinnacle, the summit, Mount Everest, whatever you want to call it, and they're starting to work their way back down. And I actually have a bit of an anecdote from the Carvana experience that we didn't talk about in that video, Dad, which was I originally, like, the price that I was quoted was like $20,150 or something like that, or $20,500. And I mistakenly resubmitted it when I realized I wasn't going to sell it as quickly and I needed a couple more days. And the price went down. It was like a week in between. The price went down about $800, and they're offering me $700, $800.
Yeah.
And so I share that because that was 2 weeks ago, and that to me was like firsthand experience of, okay, used car prices are starting to come down a little bit.
Yes, and we've been saying this for months that it was going to have to happen, because the pricing that dealers were paying at the auctions and everywhere else to get cars, they were paying, and still are in many cases, retail to be able to buy these cars so that they can put them on their lots so that they can try and get over retail for them. And yes, it appears as if there's enough interest from the buying public to go, okay, we'll pay more than retail, but there isn't enough interest from the banks to say, okay, we're going to finance way more than retail. We're going to require greater participation in the form of cash down from the buyers in order to agree to finance the balance of the cars. And so we have a viewer who had made arrangements to get a vehicle, and then it turned out, well, they couldn't get all the financing they needed because they agreed to pay more than retail because the dealers had. And so it's just not sustainable. And we've been saying it, and it seems like reality has caught up with what we've been saying for 3, 4, 5 weeks now. And gosh darn it, if the New York Times puts it in their paper, where everybody uses the subway and everything else, and who the hell can afford a car in New York, let alone a parking space for that car? If they're saying it's so, I got to believe that mainstream America is finally catching on that, damn, these prices are ridiculous.
Definitely, absolutely, Dad. And I think we're starting to see some of the effects from the coronavirus. And what I mean there is, on the wholesale side, the Black Book report talks about how this common theme of vehicle condition reports have been atrocious. It's now starting to get to the point where I think the buyers, the wholesale buyers, aka your dealers, your Carvanas, your CarMaxes, they're getting fed up with that, because you lose money when you buy a car where it says the condition's in one shape and then you get it on your lot and it's in a different shape. And so this, what's come of as a result of coronavirus are these obviously previously physical auction blocks are now running digital. And so we're starting to see some effect even from that. So it's the banks and the amount that they're willing to loan versus the value of the vehicle. It was the shortage of supply. It was the influx of people that wanted to purchase vehicles because they're afraid of public transportation. And now I think another factor that's really coming to roost is this idea that you can't just keep telling us cars are in good condition and they're not, and then they get to our lot and we have an extra $500 or $1,000 of recon that we have to do. However, I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek because if you watched our video where I sold my car to Carvana, they literally had the car on their lot and they didn't do any inspection and they still paid me for it. So I don't know, maybe that's just commonplace now, but I think that's another factor that's playing into this.
I think you're right. Dealers would usually send a pre-owned car manager or buyer to the auctions and actually inspect vehicles. And they would really look at a vehicle so that they could put together a list of the cars that they felt comfortable bidding on, because they knew that if they won, it was because they were willing to pay the most for that car. So they knew they needed to be right about what reconditioning it needed, whether it needed tires, what cosmetic work it might need. And when you're just doing it digitally, there's too much that can go wrong as far as the dealer's concerned. Because one thing that dealers hate is surprises when it comes to the used cars that they've either traded in or that they've bought at auction. And, there were times that I would appraise a car and it was fine. And 2 days later, after we traded it, and it sat for a day or so before the service department got to it, the next thing you know, there's a noise or a rattle that wasn't there. And, the owner used to say to me, well, didn't you drive the car? Well, yeah, I did. But maybe this is something that only shows up when it's cold and it's been sitting for a day or so, as opposed to somebody had just driven an hour and a half to the dealership and it was warm when I appraised the car. So yeah, dealers hate those type of surprises. It cuts into profit and profit margin, and they don't have much room for loss of margin when it comes to selling these cars.
No, because as we've talked about in most all of our videos, you don't make money on the front end of the deal, you make it on the back end. So when you're in the F&I office and you buy an extended warranty or a vehicle service contract, that's where $1,000 in profit comes in for the dealer. They didn't make necessarily $1,000, especially in today's market right now, selling you that car. I do have a question for you though, Dan, because I know I don't think you reviewed the Black Book report, but I want to put you on the spot. What do you think, which segment or type of vehicle do you think week over week saw the biggest increase in wholesale prices? So some segments of vehicles actually did see an increase week over week. And before you say trucks, trucks are part of it, but as a car, what car do you think actually increased in wholesale value?
A car? You mean a brand or?
So like a mid-sized sedan or a luxury car or a sports car or something like that.
I would think it would be your less expensive, smaller cars that have seen an increase. Yeah, that would be my guess.
So you'll find this very interesting then. So compact cars and subcompact cars actually saw some of the lowest or the greatest decreases in price.
Okay.
And premium sports cars saw the greatest increase in price, which I thought was kind of interesting because if you remember, Dad, we did the interview with Julie Blackley from IC Cars.
Yes.
And remember one of the cars that had decreased in value the most, that was kind of an outlier on that list?
Was it the 911?
It was the Porsche 911. And so I'm actually not too surprised to see that premium sports cars have increased in wholesale price, because I think they may have been undervalued relative to everything else that had shot up in value. And now we see here from the Black Book report, there was actually a big decrease in compact car prices.
Well, maybe it's because people who like those types of sports cars figure that there's less drivers on the road today, so that they can actually take them out and go have some fun, and not run into a lot of traffic.
Partly that, Dad, but also think about, we've talked about unemployment benefits running out, and the people who are maybe more dependent on those, and stimulus checks and things like that. I mean, they're the target for a subcompact vehicle versus those that are buying premium sports cars. They were going to buy that car regardless. And so I almost wonder if we're going to see this dichotomy of like those that have and those that don't, and those that have bidding up the prices of certain things, cars, real estate, etc., versus those that don't, financially being where we're going to see prices start to retreat, because there's got to be less buyers eventually, right?
You would think. And this is, the pandemic has probably exacerbated the situation where there's literally two Americas, where there's the part of America that has, and the other part of America that seems to be growing that has not. And those who have are fine. They still have money. They can still buy houses. They can still buy cars. And those that have not are now in a position where it's a growing group of people that can't make rent, can't pay mortgages, can't buy cars, can't do things. So yes, the spread between those who have and those who don't is growing dramatically. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't profess to have answers. I profess to just see what's going on and try and make some type of sense of it. So I think ultimately, if there's more people that can't afford to do things and can't afford to buy things, ultimately it'll have a huge impact on the economy and on the prices of things and the amount of things that get bought and sold.
Absolutely. And on the supply side, we'll keep our pulse on lease returns. I'll put up on the screen right about now a chart that shows you the projected lease returns. Also, repossessions are going to be a thing that we need to keep track of on the supply side, because that will affect you have it's supply and demand. So if there's an increase in supply and a decrease in demand, we're going to be having, we'll be doing our weekly market updates, and you'll want to, almost put them side by side, one from a year ago versus one from 6 months in the future. They're going to be polar opposite. We're going to be talking about how supply is so high and demand is so low, whereas, if you were watching over the past few months, supply's been incredibly low and demand has been incredibly high. I think we're just at the beginning of this inflection point that we'll be able to see take shape over the next, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12 months. I mean, it's into the future, obviously.
It's years before things will return to any sense of normalcy as far as the economy is concerned. And we've yet to see all the damage. That's just my 2 cents worth. And I'm so thankful that the New York Times is watching the channel and deciding to report on what's going on in the used car market. I'm glad we can help the Times.
Yeah, if you work for the New York Times, someone at the New York Times, put them in touch with us. We would love to, be in the New York Times, and that'd be pretty freaking cool.
Other than just me subscribing digitally, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, Pops. Well, I appreciate your time, like always.
My pleasure, honey. I'll talk to you later.
All right, I'm gonna go for a bike ride.
Yeah. Bye-bye.